Hey everyone, welcome back to Hershey Learn, the place where you learn C Sharp in a simple, cleaner, and practical way. Today, we are diving into an important topic mastering method parameters in C Sharp. Whether you're just starting or have been coding for a while, understanding method parameters will help you to write cleaner, more efficient, and reusable code. In this video, we'll break down everything step by step from value and reference parameters to advanced concepts like named and optional parameters. By the end, you'll know exactly how and when to use them in real world coding scenarios. Stay with me till the end and let's master C Sharp method parameters together. Let's get started. Alright, let's talk about methods in C Sharp, one of the most important building blocks of any program. So, what exactly is a method? It is simply a block of code that performs a specific task. So instead of writing the same code over and over again, we define a method once and we can call it whenever it's needed. This makes our code cleaner, reusable, and easier to manage. Now, why should we use methods? There are three key benefits. The first one is its readability and reusability. A method makes the code more structured and reusable across different parts of the program. And the next one is less duplication. So instead of copying the same code multiple times, we write it once inside a method and we can use it whenever it's required. And the last benefit is easy maintenance. If a change is needed, we only update the method instead of modifying multiple places in the code. Correct. But that's not all. Methods become even more powerful when we use parameters. These parameters allow us to pass different values to a method, making it flexible and adaptable. This way, we can use the same method for different inputs rather than creating separate method for each scenario. Okay, up next, we'll explore different types of methods in C Sharp and see how they work in real world coding. Now, let's talk about method parameters in C Sharp. They help us to pass data into methods, making them more useful and flexible. Here are the main types of parameters in C Sharp. The first one is value parameters. In this, method gets a copy of the variable, so original value stays the same. Okay, and the next we have reference parameters. This passes the actual variable, so anything changes inside the method will affect the original value itself. Next one is output parameters. It is used when a method needs to return multiple values. So whenever we need to return multiple values, we can use this output parameters. Next we have parameter arrays. This allows us to pass multiple arguments as an array, even if we don't know the exact count. And the last one is named and optional parameters. Named parameters make the code clear and these optional parameters provide default value if nothing has passed. Okay. Now, let's start with value parameters, the default parameter type in C Sharp. This value parameter receives a copy of original variable, means any changes made inside the method won't affect the actual variable. You can think of it like making a photocopy of a document. That means whatever happens to that copy has no impact on the original one. This is useful when we want to protect the original data. Now, let's see how it works with simple example. Okay, first I'll add using system directive so that we can use console.writeline for the output. Okay. Now I'll create a program class program. It contains our method. Okay. So now I'm defining a method static void. I'm just giving the method name as modify value. Okay. It takes an integer parameter. I can give the name as number. Since this is a value parameter, it receives only a copy of the variable that we pass. Okay. Inside this method, I'll change the number to 100. Then I'll print the value inside this method using this console.writeline to see the change. Inside method, number is equal to this number. Now, let's write the main method. This is the entry point for our program. Static void main. Now I'm declaring an integer variable. I'm just giving the variable name as original value and I'm setting it to 50. Now I'll print the value before calling that method. Console dot writeLine before method call. Original value is equal to plus original value. Okay, now I'm calling this modify value method and I'm passing this original value as an argument. Remember that we are passing only a copy of the original value, not the actual variable. Okay, now finally I'm printing this console.writeLine after the method call. Original value is equal to this original value. Okay, let's run the program and see the output. Yes, as we can see here, inside the method, number changed to 100. But after the method call, the original value is still 50. This is because the value parameters pass only the copy of the variable. So changes inside the method don't affect the original value. Alright, now let's talk about reference parameters in C Sharp. This works differently from value parameters. With value parameter, we pass a copy of variable, so any changes inside the method don't affect the original value. But with ref, we pass the actual variable itself, means any changes inside the method will reflect outside too. And one important thing to remember is before passing the variable as reference, it must be initialized. This is because ref works with an existing memory location, not just a copy. So, whenever we use ref, it is useful when we want a method to update an existing value instead of just using a copy. For example, we might use it when modifying configurations, updating settings, or processing values that need to change directly. Now that we understood how ref works, let's see it in action with simple example. Okay, here I am creating a method static void and just giving the method name as up sorry update value. It takes an integer parameter with ref keyword int number. This means we are passing the actual variable, not just a copy. Okay, inside this method I'll update this number to 100. Since it is a reference parameter, this change will reflect outside the method too. I'll use this console.writeLine to print this number inside this method. Inside method, number is equal to this number. Okay, now let's move on and call this method in main method. Now I'm creating a main method, static void main. I'm declaring an original value, int original value is equal to, I'm just assigning 50. Okay, let me print the value before calling that method. Console, oops, I need to add semicolon here. Console dot writeLine before method call. Original value is equal to plus original value. Now I'll call this update value method and I'll pass this original value using this ref. Okay. This ensures the method can modify the actual variable. Finally, I'll print the original value again to check if it is changed after method call. Okay, let's run the program and see the result. Yes, as we can see, this original value was updated from 50 to 100 even outside the method. This is because ref allows to pass the actual variable, not just a copy. Okay, I hope you understood how reference parameter works. Now let's talk about output parameters in C Sharp. Normally, a method returns one value using return. But what if we need to return multiple values? That's where output parameters helps. With output parameter, we pass a variable by reference and the method will assign a value before returning. And the best part is we don't need to initialize the variable before passing it. The method takes care of that. You can think of it like ordering a food at a restaurant. You don't bring your own plate, but the server brings your meal ready to eat before handing it over. Correct. Similarly, the method fills the value before sending them back. This is useful when the method needs to return more than one piece of information. For example, getting both largest and smallest number from a list. Now, let's see how it works with simple examples. Okay, let's imagine we are dividing two numbers and we want to return both quotient and remainder from the same method. Okay, first, let me create a method static void. I'm just giving the method name as divide. Okay, this method takes two numbers int dividend int divisor and output parameters out int. We need to return quotient and also we need to return remainder. Okay, inside this method, I'll calculate this quotient using division operator. Quotient is equal to dividend by divisor. And I'll calculate this remainder using modulus operator. Dividend mod divisor. Okay. Next, I'll use this console.writelines to print inside this method quotient is equal to this quotient. Plus remainder is equal to plus remainder. Okay, since this output parameter, they must assign a value before the method exists. Okay, let's call this method from main static void main. Inside this main, I'll declare dividend int dividend as 17 and divisor is equal to 4. We will divide 7 by 4. Okay. Now I declare quotient and remainder. Int quotient and remainder. So I'm not initializing them here. This is allowed since output parameters will be set inside the method. Okay, let's print this dividend in divisor before calling the method. Console.writeLine before method call. Dividend is equal to plus dividend divisor is equal to plus divisor. Let me add semicolon here. Now I'll call this divide method. I'll pass dividend divisor and output parameter quotient and out reminder. Okay, this method updates the value for quotient and remainder. Now, finally, I'll print quotient and remainder after this method call. Console.writeLine after method call. Quotient is equal to plus quotient plus I need to print remainder as well. Remainder is equal to plus reminder. Okay, let's run the program and check the result. Yes, here you can see 17 divided by 4 gives the quotient of 4 and the remainder is 1. Okay, since we used out parameter, the method updated both quotient and remainder successfully. This is a great example of how out parameters allow us to return multiple values from a method without needing a return statement. Okay, let's talk about parameter arrays in C Sharp. Sometimes you need a method that can take different number of inputs. So instead of creating multiple versions of the same method, we can use params to accept any number of arguments. The params keyword allows us to pass multiple values of the same type into a method. Internally, these values are stored in an array, making it easy to process them. And the best part is you can pass as many or as few values you want. Okay, and one important rule is the params parameter must always be the last one in the method. So this helps C# to know where the flexible list of values begins. You can think of it like packing a lunchbox. Some days you just take sandwich. Correct. Other days you might add fruits, snacks, and juice box. So instead of carrying separate lunch boxes for each item, you put everything in one. That's exactly how params works. So it lets us to handle multiple inputs easily in a single method. Now let's see how it works with simple example. Let me create a method. Static void. I'm just giving the method name as print numbers. Okay, it takes params integer array. I'm just giving the variable name as numbers. Okay, this means it can accept any number of integers. Inside this method, let me print console.writeLine receive numbers. Okay, I'm just printing receive numbers here. I'll use this for each loop. to iterate through all the numbers that we passed into the method. So for each int num in numbers. So let me print these numbers inside this for each loop using console.write number plus one space. Okay, now I'll use this console.write line to move on to next line. Okay, let's move on and call this method inside main method. Okay, static void main. Inside this main method, let me call this print numbers method. I'll pass 5 integer values here. 5. Okay, since we use params here, so this will be treated as an array inside the method. Okay, now I'll call this method again. I'll just pass two numbers now, 10 comma 20. So the method should still work fine. And finally, I'll call this print numbers without passing any numbers. Since this params allows zero arguments, so the method should handle this also. Okay, let's run the program and see what happens. Yes, here you can see, as expected, the method works fine with different number of arguments. When no values were passed, the loop doesn't run, it just simply prints an empty line here. This is useful when we need a method that can handle different number of inputs like summing numbers, logging messages, or formatting text dynamically. Okay, I hope you understood how this parameters array works. Let's talk about named and optional parameters in C Sharp. This makes our method calls more flexible and easier to read. First, name parameters lets us to specify which argument is for which parameter. So we don't have to follow the exact order. This is super useful when a method has many parameters and we only need to set a few specific ones. Okay, and then we have optional parameters which allow us to set default values for parameters. So if we don't provide a value, the method just uses the default one. So this helps us to avoid writing extra overloaded methods. You can think of it like ordering a sandwich. Normally the ingredients are set in order. But if you want extra cheese first or no onions, you can just say it that way. Also, if you don't mention a sauce, they'll just use the default one. That's exactly how named and optional parameters works. They make things simple and flexible. Let's see how this works with simple example. Let me create a method, static void. I'm just giving the method name as introduce. So it takes three parameter, string name, string role, and string company. Okay, so let me give default values to this last two parameters. I'm just giving the default role as developer. Okay, and to this company, sorry, record. Okay, I'm just making these two parameters as optional here. So inside this method, I'll print a message to introduce the person. Okay, console dot write line. Hello, my name is whatever the name, and I work as a. We need to provide role here and at which company we need to provide company. Okay, if no values are passed to this role and company, it will take this default values. Okay, so let me call this method in main method, static void main. First I'll call this introduce method with only name. Okay, I'll pass Harshita. Since this role and company has default values, so it uses developer and tech corp automatically. Okay, I'll call this method again, introduce. This time I'll pass name and role. Okay, I'm just passing manager here. Yes. In this method, this role method uses this manager instead of default one. Okay. And the company remains same here. Now again, I'll call this method introduce. This time I'll use name parameters to specify name and company. I'll skip this role for now. Name is Swati and company is Infotech. Okay. Since this name parameters allow arguments in any order, so this will work fine. Next, again, I'll call this method. I'll pass all the parameters, but it will be in different order, okay, using this name parameter. First, I'll pass company here, company. I'm just giving the name as Datasoft and name Lavanya and the role is architect. Okay, let me add semicolon here. Okay, let me run this code. Yes, here you can see in the first method call, I'm just passing name. Okay, so for this role and company, it has taken the default value developer and tech call. And the second method call, I'm passing name and role here. I'm not passing company name here. So in the second line, you can see the name is Teju. I work as a manager, but the company has taken default value. Okay. In the third method call, I'm passing name and company using named parameters. Okay. I'm not passing role here. So here you can see my name is Swati. I work as a developer at Infotech. Okay. In the last method call, I'm passing all the parameters that are in different order. But in the output, you can see it written in the same order which I have written here. Hello, my name is Lavanya. I work as architect at Datasoft. This is how this named and optional parameters works. I hope you understood this. Okay, let's talk about the best practices for method parameters in C Sharp. Choosing the right type of parameter can make your code more readable, maintainable, and efficient. So, use value parameters when modification is not needed. By default, method parameters are passed by value, means the original data remains unchanged. So, this is the safest and most commonly used approach. And the next one is use ref or out only when necessary. If a method needs to modify a variable and reflect the change outside the method, use ref or out. But be cautious because overusing this can make the code harder to understand and debug. Next one is keep method signatures simple and clear. Method should be easy to understand and read. Correct. So avoid too many parameters. If you find yourself passing more than 3 or 4 parameters values, consider using an object to group related data together. And the next one is use params for flexibility but don't overuse it. The params keyword lets you to pass variable number of arguments. Let's make your method more flexible. However, use it wisely because too many params method can make your API confusing. Lastly, prefer named and optional parameters for readability. Named parameters make method calls more descriptive, and this optional parameter reduce unnecessary overloads. Correct. So this improves code clarity and simplify method calls. So by following these practices, you can write cleaner, more efficient C sharp method that are easier to maintain and understand. Okay, now that's a wrap. Now you know how to use method parameters effectively in C sharp, whether it's a value, ref, out, params, or optional parameters. Remember, choosing the right parameter type makes your code cleaner, more flexible, and easier to maintain. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to Hershey Learn for more coding tips. Okay, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comment below. Thanks for watching and happy coding.